You're the Chief Executive Officer for Prevent Cancer Foundation, and you're here today to deliver to us some startling and frightening statistics. What is it all about?
Well, I think the one statistic I would like to leave everyone watching this with is the fact that less than 5%, virtually everywhere around the globe, less than 5% of the entire cancer budget, non-communicable disease budget, is spent on prevention.
What's going wrong globally?
It's a very good question, because we know, with what we know right now, we could eliminate half of cancer cases and virtually half of cancer deaths. And the incidence is due to lack of prevention, and the death rate could come down with more prevention and better treatment.
Now, we know there has been success in some countries and not others. What do you regard as the big priorities? Obviously, smoking's an obvious one.
Smoking is huge, but the fact is that obesity is poised to become the leading cause of cancer in just a few years, by 2030. So in 15 short years, obesity will overtake smoking as the #1 cause of cancer.
What do you think should be the big targets then to go for in various countries all around the world?
Well, I think our governments are the big targets, because that's where the real money is. But it will take a collaborative effort of NGOs, patients, clinicians, and researchers to continue to reduce the rate and the death rate from cancer with what we know right now.
Now, public education is a big thing, isn't it? How do you think that can be done?
Public education is critical, and I think it can be done by having organizations like ours deliver messages. We need industry as a partner, the pharmaceutical industry, for example, the device industry. We need clinicians as partners to deliver the messages. The message must be delivered on multiple fronts.
Preventing cancer, of course, is a long-term issue. So what kind of advice would you give to families and to give to doctors of all kinds, not only cancer doctors, to be talking with families about?
I think doctors of all kinds, including oncologists, need to be talking to their patients and their patients' families about how they can prevent cancer. And the fact is that preventing cancer also reduces your risk of heart disease, diabetes. There are many of the risk factors are the same, tobacco and obesity being chief among them.
And if any of the powers that be, governments around the world, are listening, what sort of funding quantities of increase do you think needs to be done? Some presumably aren't doing much at all.
Some aren't doing much at all. Even in the United States, which is not exactly a low-income country, still less than 5% of our federal budget is spent on cancer prevention. We need to be doing a better job of preventing cancer by changing behavior and also through screening. Screening is very important, and we have the resources to do it, and yet only about half of people who need a colon cancer screening, for example, in the US are screened.
And there is another obvious target. People who've already had cancer are quite at risk, aren't they?
People who have already had cancer are at higher risk than the average person of developing a second kind of cancer. Many cancer survivors, once they have actually survived the disease, had a successful outcome, feel like they are immune to other cancers, but the fact is they are not immune.
Well, how would you sum this all up then? One of the world's biggest killers is not being held back, not being prevented. What are the big messages you'd leave people with?
I think the overarching message is that we can save lives by changing our behavior to encompass what we know right now. We wouldn't have to do another research study to eliminate 50% of cancer cases and 50% of cancer deaths.
And to work diligently on ways of getting those messages out.
And we have to work together. That's I think the key is that it's going to take a collaborative effort on the part of patient advocates, NGOs, government, industry, the clinicians. Everybody's got to work together to do this, and we can achieve something great.